In September 2025, an international research team, including scientists from Harvard's Massachusetts General Hospital, published the results of a 22-year study. They tracked nearly 3,000 adults, all over the age of 60, and they measured one thing almost no scientist had ever thought to measure before: not what they ate, not how much they ate when they ate breakfast. What they found made headlines in Fox News, the Harvard Gazette, Science Daily, and Medical News Today within 48 hours of publication. The seniors who ate breakfast within a specific window were 8 percentage points more likely to still be alive 10 years later. Now, I know that sounds modest, but when a Harvard team calls a number statistically significant after 22 years of data, that is not a rounding error. That is the difference between being here and not being here. And here is what almost nobody is covering, the reason why it works. The biology underneath this finding is something your doctor has probably never explained. And there is one more thing, something the study authors buried at the very end of the paper, almost as a footnote, that I believe is actually the most important sentence in the whole document. I will show you both. Starting right now, my name is Dr. Ben, and this channel exists because your doctor's appointments are 12 minutes long. 12 minutes to review your medications, your blood pressure, your labs, your refills, and then the door opens and the next patient comes in. The research I am about to show you was published in September 2025. Most doctors have not read it yet. What I do is read it for you and translate it into something you can actually use by tomorrow morning. For 50 years, nutrition science has asked exactly one question: what should you eat? Low fat, high fat, no carbs, keto, Mediterranean, dash. Every decade, a new answer. And millions of people, including most of you watching, dutifully following each one. But there was a question nobody thought to ask, and a small group of researchers in Manchester decided to ask it. Does it matter when you eat? The field built around that question is called chrononutrition, and it is right now one of the fastest moving areas in all of medical research. Here's the core idea, and I want you to really sit with this. Your body at 7 in the morning is not the same body as at 7 in the evening. It is not even close. Every organ in your body, your liver, your gut, your pancreas, your heart, runs its own internal 24-hour clock. These clocks are coordinated by a master timekeeper deep inside your brain, a tiny cluster of neurons about the size of a grain of rice called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. In the morning, this master clock triggers a surge of cortisol, your body's natural wake-up hormone. It tells your liver, your gut, your muscles, morning has arrived. Prepare to process food. By evening, cortisol drops, melatonin rises, your metabolism slows, gut enzyme production decreases. Your insulin sensitivity, how efficiently your cells absorb and use blood sugar, actually declines, which means the identical meal, eaten at 7 a.m. versus 7 p.m., is handled by a fundamentally different body. And here is where the study gets uncomfortable. Because what the researchers found is that as we get older, specifically after 60, something happens to that master clock. It drifts. And the direction it drifts is exactly the wrong way. The Manchester study followed 2,945 adults from their early 40s all the way into their 90s. Every few years, up to 5 separate check-ins over more than 20 years, researchers recorded the exact timing of their meals. Here is what the data showed. For every decade that passed, the average breakfast time drifted 8 minutes later. 8 minutes. Sounds trivial, I know. But compound that across a decade, then another decade. By the time many people reach their 70s, they have shifted their breakfast by 30, 40, sometimes 50 minutes compared to where they were in their 60s. And the effect does not plateau, it keeps moving. And those later eaters had significantly higher rates of depression, fatigue, anxiety, and oral health problems. And here is why those are not random. Depression, fatigue, anxiety, even gum inflammation. They are all downstream effects of the same root cause. A body clock that has lost its rhythm. Their 10-year survival rate was 86.7%, compared to 89.5% for the earlier eaters. Now, I want to be precise here, the way good science demands. This is observational research. It tracks patterns across a population. It cannot definitively prove that a late breakfast causes earlier death. It is possible that late breakfast is partly a reflection of declining health, not just a driver of it. But here is why the researchers took it seriously. They controlled for age, genetics, pre-existing conditions, and lifestyle. And the connection held. Dr. Dashti, the Harvard nutrition scientist who led this study, said this: "Our findings suggest that later meal timing, especially breakfast, could serve as a simple marker of health in older adults and may guide future strategies for healthy aging." A marker, an early signal. Your breakfast time is not just a habit. It may be your body quietly telling you something is shifting, long before it shows up in any blood test. But I still have not answered the question you came here for. What time is early enough? I will give you the exact window in a moment. But before I do, the mechanism, because once you understand why this works, you will never go back to the old way. Here is what happens to your master clock after 60. Its signal weakens. The rhythms it sends to the rest of your body become flatter, less defined. Scientists call this reduced amplitude. Think of it like a radio signal. When you are young, the station comes in clean, strong. Every organ knows exactly what time it is. After 60, that signal starts to crackle, to drift in and out. And one of the first places this shows up is in your cortisol awakening response. In younger adults, cortisol spikes sharply within 30 to 45 minutes of waking. That spike is the biological message to your liver, your gut, your muscles. Morning is here. Start processing. In older adults, that spike becomes a gentle slope. Sometimes it barely registers at all, which means when you finally eat breakfast, even if you are trying to be healthy, your body has not received the memo that it is time to eat. Your insulin response is weaker, your digestive enzymes are slower, the food you eat is not processed efficiently, it sits longer, converts to fat more readily, and your blood sugar swings unpredictably. Here is something that will change the way you think about this. A 2022 study published in Cell Metabolism by researchers at Harvard's Brigham and Women's Hospital tested this directly. They gave people the same food, the same number of calories, the same sleep schedule, everything identical. The only difference was when they ate. Early eating window versus late eating window. The results: late eating increased hunger, decreased calorie burning, and altered fat metabolism pathways, all pushing the body toward weight gain and metabolic dysfunction. Same person, same food, different time. The body you eat into at 7 a.m. is metabolically more ready than the body you eat into at 10 a.m. But here is the part that makes this actionable. Food itself is a time signal. Scientists call external cues that reset your body clock Zeitgebers, a German word meaning time givers. Light is the most powerful one. Exercise is another. And eating, specifically when you eat your first meal, is one of the most powerful Zeitgebers your body has access to. When you eat breakfast at a consistent early time, you are sending a synchronized signal to your liver, your gut, your pancreas, your heart. You are telling them, morning is here, align. You are retuning that crackling radio signal without a prescription, without a device, without spending a single dollar, just by choosing when, the window. The Manchester study did not set a single hard cutoff, and any channel that tells you to eat at exactly one specific minute is selling you false precision. But the data points clearly to a principle: within 60 minutes of waking, ideally before 8:30 in the morning for most people. The researchers found that each additional hour of delay in breakfast time was independently linked to higher mortality risk, even after controlling for every other factor they could measure. And the American Heart Association, in a scientific statement on meal timing, has emphasized that aligning eating with your circadian system supports cardiometabolic health. Now, the footnote. Remember at the start of this video, I said the study authors had buried something near the end of their paper. Something I think matters more than the timing data itself. Here it is. The seniors who drifted toward later breakfasts over time were not, in most cases, making a lifestyle choice. They were not sleeping in. They were not lazy. They were getting sick first. The late breakfast was a symptom, an early warning signal that appeared in their daily routine before it showed up on any chart, in any blood panel, in any doctor's visit. Which means this: if you, or someone you love, has quietly started pushing breakfast later or skipping it altogether, that is not a character flaw. That is your body's clock beginning to drift. And it is worth paying attention to, not with fear, with information. Because the research also shows that circadian rhythms are not fixed. They respond to consistent cues. They can be nudged back toward alignment. The drift is not a life sentence. 3 things. Starting tomorrow morning. 1. Eat within 60 minutes of waking. Do not reach for your phone first. Do not wait until you are hungry. Sit down, even if it is small. Protein and something real. 2 eggs, a handful of Greek yogurt. A boiled egg with a piece of fruit. That is enough to send the signal your organs are waiting for. 2. Keep it consistent. Regularity matters as much as timing. Your master clock responds to patterns, not single data points. If you eat at 7:30 on Monday and 10 on Saturday, you are sending your system 2 different time zones every week. Same window, every day. That is when the biology starts working with you. 3. If your breakfast has been creeping later, if you have been skipping it without knowing why, bring it up at your next doctor's appointment. Not as a lifestyle footnote. Tell them, I have been reading about chrononutrition and late breakfast timing in older adults. Can we talk about that? Watch what happens when you walk in with that sentence, because you deserve a doctor who engages with that question, not one who moves on. Everything I have shared today is for educational purposes only. It is not a replacement for your personal medical care. Before making changes, especially if you take medications in the morning, talk to your doctor. Some medications interact directly with food timing in ways that matter a great deal. Here is the question I want to leave with you. What time did you eat breakfast this morning? If it was before 8:30, you are already doing something most people your age are not doing. If it was not, now you know exactly what to change and why, which brings me to something directly connected to everything we just covered. Most of you watching this take at least one prescription medication in the morning: blood pressure, cholesterol, thyroid, blood sugar. And I have spent the last 2 weeks going through the research on when those drugs should actually be taken. Not when your label says, not when your doctor mentioned when they handed you the prescription. When the science says, what researchers call chronotherapy, medication timing shows that the same pill taken at 7 a.m. versus 7 p.m. can produce dramatically different effects in your body. For some medications, timing changes how well they work. For others, it changes how safe they are. Almost no 12-minute appointment has time for that conversation. That is the next video. And if you manage any kind of chronic condition after 60, blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, thyroid, I would watch it before you take your next dose. I will see you there.